The Côte d'Azur, often known in English as the French Riviera, is the Mediterranean coastline of the southeast corner of France, also including the sovereign state of Monaco. There is no official boundary, but it is usually considered to extend from the Italian border in the east to Saint-Tropez, Hyères, Toulon, or Cassis in the west. This coastline was one of the first modern resort areas. It began as a winter health resort for the British upper class at the end of the 18th century. With the arrival of the railway in the mid-19th century, it became the playground and vacation spot of British, Russian, and other aristocrats, such as Queen Victoria and King Edward VII, when he was Prince of Wales. In the summer, it also played home to many members of the Rothschild family. In the first half of the 20th century, it was frequented by artists and writers, including Pablo Picasso, Henri Matisse, Edith Wharton, Somerset Maugham, and Aldous Huxley, as well as wealthy Americans and Europeans. After World War II, it became a popular tourist destination and convention site. Many celebrities, such as Elton John and Brigitte Bardot, have homes in the region. Officially, the Côte d'Azur is home to 163 nationalities with 83,962 foreign residents. Although estimates of the number of non-French nationals living in the area are often much higher. Its largest city is Nice, which has a population of 347,060. The city is the center of a communauté urbaine, Nice Côte d'Azur, bringing together 24 communes and over 500,000 inhabitants and 933,080 in the urban area. Nice is home to Nice Côte d'Azur Airport, France's third busiest airport, which is on an area of partially reclaimed coastal land at the western end of the Promenade des Anglais. A second airport at Mandelieu was once the region's commercial airport, but is now mainly used by private and business aircraft. The A8 autoroute runs through the region, as does the old main road generally known as the Route Nationale A7. Trains serve the coastal region and inland to Grasse, with the TGV Sud-Est service reaching Niceville station in 5 hours and a half from Paris. The French Riviera has a total population of over 2 million. It contains the seaside resorts of Cap d'Isle, Bully-sur-Mer, Saint-Jean-Cap-Ferrat, Villefranche-sur-Mer, Antibes, Wannes-les-Pins, Cannes, Saint-Raphael, Fréjus, Saint-Maxime and Saint-Tropez. It is also home to a high-tech science park or technopole at Sophia Antipolis and a research and technology center at the University of Nice. Sophia Antipolis. The region has 35,000 students, of whom 25% are working towards a doctorate. The French Riviera is a major yachting and cruising area with several marinas along its coast. According to the Côte d'Azur Economic Development Agency, each year the Riviera hosts 50% of the world's superyacht fleet, with 90% of all superyachts visiting the region's coast at least once in their lifetime. As a tourist center, it benefits from 300 days of sunshine per year, 115 kilometers of coastline and beaches, 18 golf courses, 14 ski resorts and 3,000 restaurants. Etymology. Origins of the name Côte d'Azur. The name Côte d'Azur was given to the coast by the writer Stéphane Liégeard in his book, La Côte d'Azur, published in December 1887. Liégeard was born in Dijon, in the French department of Côte d'Or, and adapted that name by substituting the azure blue color of the Mediterranean for the gold of Côte d'Or. Origin of term French Riviera. The term French Riviera is typical of English use. It was built by analogy with the term Italian Riviera, which extends east of the French Riviera. As early as the 19th century, the British referred to the region as the Riviera or the French Riviera, usually referring to the eastern part of the coast, between Monaco and the Italian border. Originally, Riviera is an Italian common name which means coastline. In Occitan and French, the only usual names are Costa d'Azur in Occitan and Côte d'Azur in French. A name like French Riviera is unusual and sounds odd. It could only work as a word-to-word translation of the British point of view. For instance, in French, Riviera Française is found in the online Larousse encyclopedia to refer to the holidays of a group of English workers. Dispute over the extent of the Riviera and the Côte d'Azur. The Côte d'Azur and the French Riviera have no official boundaries. Some sources put the western boundary at Saint-Tropez in the Var département. Others include Saint-Tropez, Hyères or Toulon in the Var, or as far as Cassis in the Bouches-du-Rhône département. In her 1955 novel, The Talented Mr. Ripley, Patricia Highsmith describes the Riviera as including all of the coast between Toulon and the Italian border. History. From prehistory to the Bronze Age, the Côte d'Azur has been inhabited since prehistoric times. Primitive tools dating to between 1 million and 1.050 million years were discovered in the Grotte du Vallonnet, near Roquebrune-Cap-Martin, with stones and bones of animals, including bovines, rhinoceros, and bison. At Terra Amata, near the Nice port, a fireplace was discovered that is one of the oldest found in Europe. Stone dolmens, monuments from the Bronze Age, can be found near Draguignan, while the Valley of Marvels near Mount Bego, at 2,000 meters elevation, is presumed to have been an outdoor religious sanctuary, having over 40,000 drawings of people and animals, dated to about 2000 BC. Greek influence. Beginning in the 7th century BC, Greek sailors from Asia Minor began to visit and then build trading posts along the Côte d'Azur. Emporia were started at Olbia, Antipolis and Nicaea. These settlements, which traded with the inhabitants of the interior, became rivals of the Etruscans and Phoenicians, who also visited the Côte d'Azur. Roman colonization. In 08 BC, the Emperor Augustus built an imposing trophy monument at La Turbie to mark the pacification of the region. Roman towns, monuments and amphitheaters were built along the Côte d'Azur and many still survive, such as the amphitheater and baths at Chimay, above Nice, and the amphitheater, Roman walls and other remains at Fréjus. Barbarians and Christians. Roman Provence reached the height of its power and prosperity during the 2nd and 3rd centuries AD. In the mid-3rd century, Germanic peoples began to invade the region, and Roman power weakened. In the same period, Christianity started to become a powerful force in the region. The first cathedrals were built in the 4th century, and bishoprics were established in Fréjus at the end of the 4th century, Chimay and Vence in 439, and Antibes in 442. The oldest Christian structure still in existence on the Côte d'Azur is the Baptistery of Fréjus Cathedral, built at the end of the 5th century, which also saw the founding of the first monastery in the region, Lerins Monastery on an island off the coast at Cannes. The fall of the Western Roman Empire in the first half of the 5th century was followed by invasions of Provence by the Visigoths, the Burgundians and the Ostrogoths. There was then a long period of wars and dynastic quarrels, which in turn led to further invasions by the Saracens and the Normans in the 9th century. The Counts of Provence and the House of Grimaldi. Some peace was restored to the coast by the establishment in 879 of a new kingdom of Provence, ruled first by the Beaux-Onnaud's dynasty, then by the Catalans, and finally by the Angevins. In the 13th century, another powerful political force appeared, the House of Grimaldi. Descended from Aginos, a nobleman expelled from Genoa by his rivals in 1271, members of the different branches of the Grimaldis took power in Monaco, Antibes and Nice, and built castles at Grimaud, Caen-sur-Mer and Antibes. Albert II, the current Prince of Monaco, is a descendant of the Grimaldis. In 1388, the city of Nice and its surrounding territory, from the mouth of the Var to the Italian border, were separated from Provence and came under the protection of the House of Savoy. The territory was called the Comté de Nice after 1526, and thereafter its language, history and culture were separate from those of Provence until 1860, when it was reattached to France under Napoleon III. Provence retained its formal independence until 1480, when the last Comte de Provence, a René of Naples, died and left the comté to his nephew, Charles du Maine, who in turn left it to Louis XI of France. In 1486, Provence formally became part of France. Popularity with the British upper class in 18th and 19th centuries until the end of the 18th century. The area, later known as the Côte d'Azur, was a remote and impoverished region, known mostly for fishing, olive groves and the production of flowers for perfume. A new phase began when the coast became a fashionable health resort for the British upper class in the late 18th century. The first British traveller to describe its benefits was the novelist Tobias Smollett, who visited Nice in 1763 when it was still an Italian city within the Kingdom of Sardinia. At about the same time, a Scottish doctor, John Brown, became famous for prescribing what he called climatotherapy, a change in climate, to cure a variety of diseases including tuberculosis, known then as consumption. The French historian Paul Gonnet wrote that, as a result, Nice was filled with a colony of pale and listless English women and listless sons of nobility near death. In 1834, a British nobleman and politician named Henry Peter Brougham, 1st Baron Brougham and Berks, who had played an important part in the abolition of the slave trade, travelled with an unwell sister to the south of France, intending to go to Italy. A cholera epidemic in Italy forced him to stop at Cannes, where he enjoyed the climate and scenery so much that he bought land and built a villa. He began to spend his winters there and, owing to his fame, others followed. Cannes soon had a small British enclave. Robert Louis Stevenson was a later British visitor who came for his health. In 1882 he rented a villa called La Solitude at Hyères, where he wrote much of A Child's Garden of Verses, Railway, Gambling, and Royalty in 1864. 6 years after Nice became part of France following the Second Italian War of Independence, the first railway was completed, making Nice and the Riviera accessible to visitors from all over Europe. 100,000 visitors arrived in 1865. By 1874, a residents of foreign enclaves in Nice, most of whom were British, numbered 25,000. In the mid-19th century, British and French entrepreneurs began to see the potential of promoting tourism along the Côte d'Azur. At the time, gambling was illegal in France and Italy. In 1856, the Prince of Monaco, Charles III, began constructing a casino in Monaco, which was called a health spa to avoid criticism by the church. The casino was a failure, but in 1863 the prince signed an agreement with François Blanc, a French businessman already operating a successful casino at Baden-Baden, to build a resort and new casino. At the suggestion of his mother, Princess Caroline, Charles II renamed the place Monte Carlo after himself. When the railway reached Monte Carlo in 1870, many thousands of visitors began to arrive and the population of the Principality of Monaco doubled. The French Riviera soon became a popular destination for European royalty. Just days after the railway reached Nice in 1864, Tsar Alexander II of Russia visited on a private train, followed soon afterwards by Napoleon III and then Leopold II, the King of the Belgians. Queen Victoria was a frequent visitor. In 1882 she stayed in Menton, and in 1891 spent several years at the Grand Hotel at Grasse. In 1892 she stayed at the Hotel Cosbel in Hyères. In successive years from 1895 to 1899 she stayed in Chimys in the hills above Nice. First, in 1895 and 1896, she patronized the Grand Hotel, while in later years she and her staff took over the entire west wing of the Excelsior Hotel Regina, which had been designed with her needs specifically in mind. She traveled with an entourage of between 60 and 100, including chef, ladies-in-waiting, dentist, Indian servants, own bed and her own food. The Prince of Wales was a regular visitor to Cannes, starting in 1872. He frequented the Club Nautique, a private club on the Croisette, the fashionable seafront boulevard of Cannes. He visited there each spring for a 2-month period, observing yacht races from shore while the royal yacht floated. Britannia was sailed by professional crewmen. After he became king in 1901, he never again visited the French Riviera. By the end of the 19th century, the Côte d'Azur began to attract artistic painters, who appreciated the climate, the bright colors and clear light. Among them were Auguste Renoir, who settled in Cannes-sur-Mer and in Mugens, Henri Matisse and Pablo Picasso. Interwar period. American visitors and decline of the aristocracy. The First World War brought down many of the royal houses of Europe and altered the nature and the calendar of the French Riviera. Following the war, greater numbers of Americans began arriving, with business moguls and celebrities eventually outnumbering aristocrats. The high society scene moved from a winter season to a summer season. Americans began coming to the south of France in the 19th century. Henry James set part of his novel, The Ambassadors, on the Riviera. James Gordon Bennett Jr., the son and heir of the founder of the New York Herald, had a villa in Beaulieu. Industrialist John Pierpont Morgan gambled at Monte Carlo and bought 18th-century paintings by Fragonard in Grasse, shipping them to the Metropolitan Museum in New York. A feature of the French Riviera in the interwar years was the Train Bleu, an all first-class sleeper train which brought wealthy passengers down from Calais. It made its first trip in 1922, and carried Winston Churchill, Somerset Maugham, and the future King Edward VIII over the years. While Europe was still recovering from the war and the American dollar was strong, American writers and artists started arriving on the Côte d'Azur. Edith Wharton wrote The Age of Innocence at a villa near Hyères, winning the Pulitzer Prize for the novel. Dancer Isadora Duncan frequented Cannes and Nice, but died in 1927 when her scarf caught in a wheel of the Amilcar motor car in which she was a passenger and strangled her. The writer F. Scott Fitzgerald first visited with his wife Zelda in 1924, stopping at Hyères, Cannes and Monte Carlo, eventually staying at St. Raphael, where he wrote much of The Great Gatsby and began Tender is the Night. While Americans were largely responsible for making summer the high season, a French fashion designer, Coco Chanel, made sunbathing fashionable. She acquired a striking tan during the summer of 1923, and tans then became the fashion in Paris. During the abdication crisis of the British monarchy in 1936, Wallis Simpson, the intended bride of King Edward VIII, was staying at the Villa Louvagie in Cannes, talking with the king by telephone each day. After his abdication, the Duke of Windsor and his new wife stayed at the Villa La Croix near Antibes. The English playwright and novelist Somerset Maugham also became a resident in 1926, buying the Villa Mauresque toward the tip of Cap Ferrat, near Nice. The Second World War. When Germany invaded France in June 1940, the remaining British colony was evacuated to Gibraltar and eventually to Britain. American Jewish groups helped some of the Jewish artists living in the south of France, such as Marc Chagall, to escape to the United States. In August 1942, 600 Jews from Nice were rounded up by French police and sent to Drancy, and eventually to death camps. In all, about 5,000 French Jews from Nice perished during the war. On 15 August 1944, American parachute troops landed near Fréjus, and a fleet landed 60,000 troops of the American 7th Army and French 1st Army between Cavalaire and Aguet, east of St. Raphael. German resistance crumbled in days. Saint-Tropez was badly damaged by German mines at the time of the liberation. The novelist Colette organized an effort to assure the town was rebuilt in its original style. When the war ended, artists Marc Chagall and Pablo Picasso returned to live and work. Post-war period and late 20th century, the Cannes Film Festival was launched in September 1946, marking the return of French cinema to world screens. The Festival Palace was built in 1949 on the site of the old Cercle Nautique, where the Prince of Wales had met his mistresses in the late 19th century. The release of the French film Adieu, Cre Écoutez la Femme in November 1956 was a major event for the Riviera, making an international star of Brigitte Bardot, and making an international tourist destination of Saint-Tropez, particularly for the new class of wealthy international travelers called the Jet Set. The marriage of American film actress Grace Kelly to Prince Rainier of Monaco on 18 April 1956 attracted world attention once again. It was viewed on television by 30 million people. During the 1960s, the mayor of Nice, Jacques Médecin, decided to reduce the dependence of the Riviera on ordinary tourism, and to make it a destination for international congresses and conventions. He built the Palais des Congrès at the Acropolis in Nice, and founded a Chagall Museum and a Matisse Museum at Chimay. High-rise apartment buildings and real estate developments began to spread. At the end of August 1997, Princess Diana and Dodi Fayed spent their last days together on his father's yacht off Pampelon Beach near Saint-Tropez, shortly before they were killed in a traffic accident in the Alma Tunnel in Paris.